It's time for Defending and Commending the Faith with Joe Mott, inviting the atheist, agnostic, and skeptic to examine for themselves the evidence for the Christian faith. We are all limited by what we do not know and by the things we think we know but are not true. Dr. Joe Mott earned his PhD at LSU and was a distinguished math professor at Florida State University for 38 years, helping to write 3 math textbooks and authoring over 30 research articles in math. He is now the host of this radio program, Defending and Commending the Faith. Here is Joe Mott.
Welcome to all in the audience. I pray you are all well. I've said that the typical design argument for the existence of God goes like this. 1. Every design has a designer. 2. The universe manifests design. 3. Therefore, the universe has a designer. Premise 1 seems obvious. Design arguments usually differ in the evidence given to support premise 2. In recent decades, scientists have discovered many aspects of the universe appear to be just right to allow for the emergence of intelligent life. The anthropic principle refers to the scientific observation that the universe exhibits all the necessary and narrowly defined parameters to make human life possible. For example, the fundamental cosmological constants of nature appear to be conspicuously fine-tuned to allow a universe that is hospitable to human life always and everywhere. These constants of nature include the strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, gravitational force, and electromagnetic force. If the measurable values or margins were even slightly larger or smaller, no life of any kind would be possible in the universe. In the book, The Trouble with Physics, astronomer Lee Smolin imagines God sitting at a control panel with a multitude of dials in front of him. One dial sets the mass of protons, another the charge of the electron, a third sets the gravitational constant, another the strong nuclear force, and so on. God spins the dials randomly. What, Smolin asks, is the probability that this random spinning would result in a universe with stars and planets and life? The probability, he answers, is incredibly small. How small? Smolin's estimate is 1 out of 10 raised to the 229th power. This is reinforced by a single example from the physicist Stephen Hawking, who said, if the rate of expansion 1 second after the Big Bang had been smaller by 1 part in 100,000 million, that is 1 over 10 to the 17th power, the universe would have recollapsed before it even reached its present size. So the odds against us being here are astronomical, and yet we are here. So who or what is responsible for this? So the dials all turn out to be set precisely within the narrow range that allows for life to be possible in the universe. To put it another way, we live in a Goldilocks universe that is just right. This amazing discovery of a fine-tuned cosmos has astounded the scientific community. Stephen Hawking notes, the remarkable fact is that the values of these numbers seem to have been very finely adjusted to make possible the development of life. Physicist Paul Davies went further to raise the question of design. He said, the seeming miraculous concurrence of numerical values that nature has assigned to her fundamental constants must remain the most compelling evidence for cosmic design. Fine-tuning and the anthropic principle are no longer controversial ideas in the scientific community. The challenging question is how to interpret and account for this extraordinary phenomena. Was the universe somehow physically determined to be this way? Physical necessity, in other words? Did the inhabitants of the Goldilocks universe just get insanely lucky? Chance, in other words? Did natural selection make it appear to be designed? Or did a transcendent divine agent design things to be this way? The theoretical physicist Michael G. Strauss announces his interpretation. He said, "The universe looks finely tuned because it is actually designed. This seems to be the most straightforward interpretation of the facts." He continues, "This adds to the abundant evidence from science that, I believe, is best explained by a transcendent personal God." Alvin Plantinga, the world's foremost philosopher of religion, agrees. He said, "One reaction to these apparent enormous coincidences is to see them as substantiating the theistic claim that the universe has been created by a personal God and as offering the material for properly restrained theistic argument, hence the fine-tuning argument. I have given a design argument in episode 61 entitled Critique of Dawkins' book, The God Delusion, Part 2, in episode 72, entitled The Implications of a Universe with No God, Part 2, and in episode 106, entitled Is Belief in God Reasonable, Part 4. In episodes 72 and 106, I discuss 4 modes of explanation of the fine-tuning of the physical constants in the universe: design, chance, the result of natural law, often called physical necessity, and natural selection. In these episodes, I eliminated chance, necessity, and natural selection, leaving only the option of design. The fine-tuning of the initial conditions for the universe from the beginning of time gives support to premise 2. Fine-tuning implies a fine-tuner. Sensing the force of the argument from fine-tuning, many secular scientists have decided to reject the design option in favor of the exotic multiverse hypothesis. According to these multiverse advocates, humans have won the cosmic lottery by emerging from natural processes in what may be the only universe that has all the physical characteristics necessary to permit intelligent life. At present, there is no observational evidence of other universes, and it appears that it is impossible to ever be able to find that kind of evidence. Accordingly, some scientists view this many worlds hypothesis as nothing more than a desperate leap of faith. In the last episode, I discussed William Dembski's explanatory filter to determine design. Dembski's The Design Inference and subsequent works identified 2 indicators of intelligent activity by which rational agents recognize the effects of other rational agents and distinguish those effects from the effects of purely undirected natural causes. Dembski notes that we invariably attribute events, systems, or sequences of characters that have the joint properties of complexity, that is, of low probability, and specification, that is, if it follows a pattern, to intelligent causes if it exhibits both these factors, and in that case, we know it is designed. Let me show that fine-tuning of the initial conditions at the beginning of the universe satisfies the two indicators of design of Dembski's explanatory filter. There are a multitude of initial conditions, and we know they all fall in a very narrow range that enables life to exist. That surely is improbable. Had these initial conditions been outside the range, then life would not be possible. So they accomplish a purpose. Thus, it appears that fine-tuning satisfies Dembski's two indicators of specifications in conjunction with low probability, complexity, that is. Now let's turn to answer the question, does the base sequence of information in DNA satisfy Dembski's two indicators of design? Recall that specifications is a match between an event and a special kind of pattern, patterns that we know independently of the event in question. Do the sequences of nucleotide bases in DNA match a pattern that are independently from some other realm of experience? The insistence of pattern requires some clarification. While not knowing any pattern that is recognizable from having seen such a pattern elsewhere, molecular biologists do recognize a functional significance in the sequence of bases in DNA based upon something else they do know. The sequence of nucleotide bases in DNA are highly specific relative to the independent requirements of protein function, protein synthesis, and cellular life. Any nucleotide base sequence that directs the production of protein hits a functional target within an abstract space of possibilities. The chemical properties of DNA allow a vast number of possible arrangements of nucleotide bases. In particular, that number is 4 to the power 3.1 billion, determined by the 4 possible nucleotide bases for every character in the 3.1 billion characters of DNA. Yet, within the set of all possibilities, relatively few will actually produce functional proteins. This smaller set of functional sequences therefore determines a domain or targets or patterns within a larger set of possibilities. Thus, any actual nucleotide sequence that falls within this domain or matches one of the possible functional sequences corresponding to it hits a functional target and are specified in the sense of Dembski's design detection. Of course, this likelihood is a very low probability. Thus, the space sequence of information in DNA also satisfies Dembski's other indicator of design, namely complexity. The information stored in the DNA molecule gives an informational message. A message that gives information implies an intelligent messenger. Despite the statements of Darwin, Dawkins, Crick, and others to the contrary, saying that there is no real design, just the appearance of design, we now have a proof of design and consequently conclude confidently there is an intelligent mind behind the whole process. In my opinion, Dawkins, Crick, et al. Should silence their vindictive rhetoric, holster their deprecatory tongues, and acknowledge that there is design and refuse to continue to affirm only appearance of design. I will return to this topic of the design argument in the next episode. In the meantime, exercise daily, walk with God.
Thank you for listening to Defending and Commending the Faith with Joe Mott, a production of Wave 94 Radio in Tallahassee, Florida. If you have any questions or comments for Joe, please forward them to Doug Apple at Wave94 at this email address, dougapple@wave94.com. And be sure to join us every Monday evening at 6:45 p.m. on Wave 94 and subscribe through your favorite podcast app. Defending and Commending the Faith with Joe Mott.